I woke up one day to find myself at the lowest point in my life. Things had taken a bad turn, and I was hit with the dreadful realization that I had no reason to get out of bed in the morning. To relieve myself of this misery, I turned to Stoicism. I got acquainted with the Stoic philosophy and started living my life based on its principles. I listened to the voice of virtue, started journaling, set goals for what I wanted to accomplish. And these practices got me a long way, but I was still feeling a void in my soul, so to speak. I was lonely and I felt like I was lacking purpose. And then the next adversity hit and I found myself in the same place as before. Practicing Stoicism didn't give me a sense of meaning or alleviate my loneliness. As far as I was concerned, I was being a good person while still feeling like shit inside. If this sounds like you may have encountered the same major shortcoming of Stoicism that I did. Here's what's wrong with Stoicism, and this applies to most Western philosophies as well. It is based on thought. It relies on your belief in the stories that it has to tell. In other words, in the value of virtue, strength of mind against adversity, the inevitability of death, and so on. These are stories that Stoic philosophy promotes so that you can rebuild your mindset and live better. There's nothing wrong with their content, but there is something wrong with living your life based on stories.
But Chris, what's wrong with stories?
Before I even knew of Stoicism, I had become familiar with teachings of Eastern masters of mind. But I didn't discover the life-changing benefits of their philosophy until relatively recently. Various doctrines of Eastern philosophy, such as Advaita Vedanta, point to a non-thought-based approach to life. To briefly describe it, suffering and generally undesirable mental states occur because we identify with our thoughts. We think without knowing that we're thinking. And we become entangled with whatever thought dawns on us. Pay attention now, this isn't about not believing your thoughts or pushing them away. Most of what we experience in our daily lives is clouded by the interpretation of our thoughts. All events, activities, encounters with people fit into a story that runs around in our minds, unacknowledged most of the time. What this means in practice is that your anger or frustration about something that happened is caused by you thinking you're part of the story, as if it's happening to you. By contrast, if something happens but you don't identify with the story around it, then you don't suffer. Things just happen, as if you were watching a movie. The Stoic Marcus Aurelius said, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." Now, this is the heart of the issue. Stoicism relies on building a strong enough story so it can override stories that cause suffering. But you cannot fight thought with thought. It's like proving math with math. You may succeed for some time as long as you find yourself in a positive mindset, but as long as you remain in the realm of thought, you will continue to be susceptible to any thought that arises without having any control over it. Bear with me on this one. So to prove math, you need something outside of math. Think of it in levels. So in here's this math, but outside of it, there's the axioms that make it work. Similarly, there's a level outside of thought or before thought. That's what these Eastern doctrines are pointing to. You can live your life not from thought, but from presence or being, which is a level higher than thought. Becoming aware of your thoughts is only the first step towards it, but you can learn to live in this state. While the Stoic has to do all sorts of journaling and visualization rituals, essentially to convince themselves into a beneficial mindset, a person who can live before thought can simply exit an unskillful mental state or not identify with it at all and let it dissolve on its own. While the Stoic comes up with more stories to believe in being calm and strong, a person who lives before thought can just be that without thinking about it. Simple. It's like finding yourself in a game where you have to fight, yet you can exit the game and not play at all. That is the true antidote to suffering, the simple act of erasing your identification with the stories running around in your head. This does not mean more thinking or conceptualization. It's the opposite of that. It took practice for me to realize this, but now I feel more fulfilled and satisfied than ever, even though my life is mostly the same as before. Yet I don't have to partake in endless storytelling to convince myself that I'm fine. I can find happiness at any moment simply by shifting away from thought into being present. And so can you. This is the essence of living a good life. At the end of the day, Stoicism is another set of stories that is obscuring the happiness you could be experiencing right now. My argument isn't that you shouldn't be a Stoic at all, but that Stoicism is an incomplete answer to the question of living a good life. And you don't have to do away with the moral axioms of Stoicism. You will still arrive at the same conclusions, namely that it is desirable to be virtuous and work towards collective well-being. But you won't need to convince yourself through elaborate stories about identity, integrity, impulsivity, and so on. They will come naturally, as everything does, when you're not projecting a story. Thank you for watching this video. I don't make videos like these a lot, but I do send a weekly newsletter with insights like what you just saw. Just a 3-minute read every Monday with actionable advice, and you can find the link below. In the meantime, you can subscribe to get the next video whenever I decide to make another one. So I'll see you then.